to start recording. And I'll just start with a question, but seriously, you can't talk too much.
Oh, yeah.
You can't. I promise. I want anything you got.
Oh, you mean if I talk too much, that's fine?
Yes,
You
that's
mean,
what
like,
I'm saying.
talk your head off?
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean don't talk too much. It's
You mean
impossible
talk
for
too
you
much,
to
okay.
talk too much. No, that was so rude. I'm sorry.
No, it's not rude. It was. It's good to know. I need to know
bad
what
wording.
you need.
I need
But I
everything.
understood, of course, the opposite. That's
Okay,
always
good.
something I do. I always like saying
Okay.
the opposite. Oh my god. So are you recording
Yes.
right now?
Yes. Okay. Number one. So how long have you... So, first of all, what do you call yourself? Which is a weird thing to ask. But, like, because this morning Joaquin was saying catalanista, but there's also independentista. Like, what do you consider yourself? You had to have a name.
I'm independentista.
Yeah.
And catalanista.
Yeah.
And I'm just Catalan, really.
Okay, good.
And also independentista.
Okay, that's good. So when did you start?
And I'm Catalan American too.
Yeah, that's true. So when did you first start, like, being really involved, and why, and how did that happen? Like, the beginning.
Well, it's really interesting. I feel like I was involved from the beginning of this very recent movement, which is like, I don't know, 2009 maybe? 2009, 2010? Something like that.
Yeah.
Because I've been here for about 22 years, and then, like, I've been, obviously I'm involved with the society here, and I'm involved with a lot of Catalan people, and it's very exciting to be Catalan. It's very exciting. I don't know if you can, are you going to be able to hear this?
Yeah, because I tried it.
Oh, okay.
And I tried it, and it actually works pretty well.
Okay, good. So like in, I don't know if it was 2010 maybe. In 2009, we voted for our new, I'm not going to remember any words now. Estatut, the estatut, which is like it's like the
statute.
the statutes that govern the government in Catalonia. It's like our
like the referendum, for example.
Well, it's a statute. What do you call that? It's like it's like a constitution.
Ah, okay.
But for Catalonia, it's like inside of Spain. Obviously, Spain is very centralized, but they pretend that it's very decentralized, but it's not. So anyway, we had an estatut that dated from like 1978.
Right.
Which is like just
right
after
after
Franco died, the transition. We had this estatut that was kind of watered down, but it was old, right? So
yes.
So we thought, it's time for a new estatut. People were having wild marches in 78 as well for the estatut. They had to go wild in marches to get their first estatut, and now we wanted a new estatut, but under democracy this was supposed to function easily, so they wrote up a new estatut, and in the Catalan parliament they voted it in. Then they held a referendum with the people of Catalonia about the estatut. Everybody said yes, it's fine. And then they sent it to Madrid, because in Madrid they decide at the Madrid parliament, whatever Congress or something. And they were like, they watered it down some, and they cut some stuff out, and then they were like, okay, fine. And then it came back here, and I think the referendum we did was after the watering down, but still it was like, okay, whatever. We were like, whatever, okay. But then the PP came into power, the Partido Popular, which, PP, the PP,
I know.
say, PP, which is definitely a good name, PP. So for them, and so they came into power, and they completely destroyed. They suddenly declared it illegal.
Declared what illegal?
The new constitution, the new estatut that we had all voted and worked on for a long time, and it had gone here to the parliament, and it had gone to the parliament in Spain, and they had said yes, and blah blah blah. And in fact, this estatut, every single comunidad autónoma in Spain, the comunidades autónomas, you know what that is?
Yeah, like the regions.
The regions, yeah. So all the comunidades autónomas have estatuts, basically. I don't know if they call them estatuts, but it's the same thing. So I think the Valencian land had just voted in one that was basically the same, and some other place in Spain had voted when it was basically the same. But the Catalan one, the PP party, because they're so nutso, and they're like the followers of they're the people who come after Franco, the sort of followers of Franco under democracy. They completely overhauled it. They completely like cut out so much of it. They cut out millions of. They just really did a real job on it, and everybody was furious.
Yeah.
Obviously, because they had already passed through all the stupid government things that had even been watered down already.
Right.
But like they even like eliminated a statement that said we are a people. They were like, that's illegal. That's illegal. That's illegal. Constitutionally illegal under the Spanish Constitution. That's illegal. That's illegal. That's illegal. Everything was illegal. And so it was really nuts.
Yeah.
And like Spain is a multi-ethnic, natively multi-ethnic community, but there are many governing people in Spain who think it should be a single ethnicity, and the other ones don't count.
Right.
Ethnicity, ethnic
So it's sort of
group,
like
people.
nationalism in Spain. Like you could say, to be Spanish, you have to be
Spanish nationalist.
Yeah.
As
exactly.
in Castilian.
Yeah.
As in the Castilian identity is the only one that's worthy of existing
Right.
and being called Spanish.
Yeah.
So Spain doesn't seem to really admit plurality. But native plurality, I'm not saying like you have to, I mean, if you have millions of immigrants from millions of parts of the world, you can't just change your identity. But I mean, if you have like 6 regions that are completely different and they have their own identity and their own history and everything, then you should embrace that.
Right.
And not try to eliminate it.
Right. Exactly.
So there.
So that the PP came into power. Was it like 2011 or 2012? I feel like that's
I don't even know the
I
dates.
actually,
I'm very bad.
at
but
one point I knew this. No, don't worry because I can find it all.
Could be. Maybe I'm like saying the wrong dates. Like could be 2010. The whole statute thing was going on. I thought it was 2009, but it could be 2010. And then 2011 they nixed it all and destroyed that. And then everybody just spontaneously. That was the first big moguda, as we say. That was the first big protest march, but it was completely spontaneous. And I remember here in Barcelona, I was there. It was so exciting.
Gosh, that's amazing.
It was like millions of people went to Passeig de Gracia. And it was just this huge march. I just remember it as being incredibly spontaneous and like major thing, and just as a reaction to that. And then it was the first time that people were just, like there were politicians there and everything, but the people were the ones who were chanting independence already. That was, they were already saying like independence, because how can they do that and expect to have us part of the, what are we supposed to be, like the colony? It's like, they think that we're a colony. So we have to shut the fuck up, be Spanish, and stop being Catalan. How dare you? You're so bothersome. You bother us with your bothersome language. You just speak Catalan to bother people, right? That's a lot of people think. They're like, how can you speak Catalan? If everybody speaks Spanish, why do you even speak Catalan? Like, it's another language, man. Languages are treasures. Anyway, so we were all out there. 2010, it was really exciting. And then every year it was like the 11th of September. It's like that day that everybody, which is a different day in the States.
Funny now.
I know, it like just coincides with that date. It's so horrible. You know?
Oh, jeez.
But it's also a tragic day, so there you go.
Look
Not
at
that tragic because it's so old.
I know. So you would say that that's when it really started.
That's when people started really being fed up. It was like what is that? The thingy that broke the camel's back.
Oh yeah, the straw that broke the
Thank
camel's back.
La gota, the little drop that flowed the cup, whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's when people started getting really fed up and actually like seriously thinking about independence, because you know how maybe you're not so happy within a union with Spain, and you toy with the idea of independence, and you think it would be so great, but you just it sounds like something wishful thinking, something that can't be attained, and it sounds like something that's just like a little crazy, you know, and blah blah, and people just go on and make the best of it, and it's fine, everything is fine, right? But then at this point, it was just like, what the fuck, and all the grievances that the Catalans have accumulated in modern times, in right now, as well as like over the centuries, because there's centuries loads of grievances, and so everything just like people just suddenly started thinking that they seriously could achieve independence in this day and age because all you needed to do was be organized and be really peaceful like Gandhi and like just try and do it with people power. And so that was it's a very idealistic movement, I think. But it's running up against a lot of bullshit,
right,
and politics, and So anyway, I don't even remember what your question was. Did I ever
It was
answer
like, how did it start? No, that was perfect. That was perfect. Oh my god, I'm gonna have like extra questions for you. So,
oh my god.
So everywhere it says libertad, right? And then democracia is also really democracia.
Yeah.
Is there? Those are like two. Like when I'm walking down the street, those are two things that I see all the time.
Yeah,
so, what do those words mean to you?
They're up there as part of this political activism thing right now, and of course, they mean a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
But democracia is like right now. It's like what's happening in Spain. We just don't feel like it's democratic at all, and like it's like George Orwell. Everyone's equal, but some are more equal than others.
That's so great.
I'm telling you, it's just crazy. So democracia is like, come on. There's a lot of fascism still in Spain, very much alive. Yeah, and it's in it's ingrained in the system. And this farcical court case, these trials, these farcical trials have been a farce, a real farce.
Yeah.
I mean, total invented, trumped up charges, all sorts of. I mean, obviously they're calling the people who were at peaceful demonstrations terrorists.
Yeah.
They're saying that they were violent. There was no violence. They were in fact calling for, people to be always very calm and stop people if they got violent. Stop if there's some crazy kid that thinks it's really cool to do something, or if there's some infiltrated cops who are trying to be violent, you stop them.
Yeah.
And those are the people, the most precious people are in jail right now.
Who are they?
There is two civil society leaders. There are two civil society leaders who weren't even in politics, but they're really charismatic, and they were such amazing leaders. And I think Madrid was like, if we decapitate this, we can stop the whole movement. And in a way, they did a really good job because they were really. And there's Carmen Forcadell, who is the president of the parliament at the time that the independence was quote unquote declared for like 5 seconds.
Right.
She allowed the parliament to discuss this and to discuss whether they would declare, because she was a spokesperson. What do you call it? Speaker.
Representative?
The speaker.
Oh,
of the
speaker.
parliament.
Oh.
And but before that, she was the leader of ANC, which is this civil society organization. Just like Jordi Cuixart. Jordi Cuixart is Omnium, but Jordi Sanchez is the leader of ANC, or was. He was the president when he was arrested, and she was the president before that, for a couple of years before that. So Madrid had their eyes on her. She was a really good person to get the fuck out of the way. She didn't do anything. Nobody did anything. I mean, this is a witch hunt to get rid of all the independentists, and that's what they've done in the Basque Country. In the Basque Country, it's different because they had an active terrorist group. There was nothing here ever like that, really.
Yeah.
There was Terra Lliure, but it was like this little baby thing that they got caught once with some bombs in a car, but that's like the extent of it all. It was like terrorist organization, but but in the Basque Country it's different. But still, the Basque Country is not ETA. There are many wonderful people in the Basque Country, and many people who want independence in the Basque Country as well.
Yeah.
And, with the excuse of ETA, since forever, Spain has just been, trashing the Basque Country. They arrested, 10 years ago, or 15 or something, in Garria, I think. They arrested all the members of a Basque newspaper, which was published exclusively in Basque, saying that they were all terrorists. And then, 10 years later, they were acquitted. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's all like this.
Yeah.
It's just they're writing a newspaper in Basque. Oh, terrorist. I mean, what if you actually did have an article that was in favor of independence? Does that make you a terrorist? I mean, I have no idea what they wrote in those newspapers. Nobody can even understand it. So like, I don't know, the 10,000 people who speak Basque.
Right. That's
know.
that's actually interesting because with the Basque Country, it's in France and Spain.
As is Catalonia.
Right. So how does that work? Because
Well, you mean who's active and who's not? Or
well, I guess I think of like when Catalonia becomes
if-
independent,
oh,
it
yeah.
has to secede from France too.
No,
Oh.
because what's going to happen is like, you know, Spain and France, and Spain itself has always been like divide and conquer, right? Because the places where Catalan is the native language are much further than just Catalonia. I mean, not much further,
Yeah.
but it's like the Valencian lands, the Balearic Islands, Andorra, little fringe of Aragon, bordering on Catalonia, and that little part of France, the Roussillon and Roussillon, and a couple of other little provinces or whatever,
Yeah.
counties. But obviously, if we secede, it's kind of sad because we will leave all those little parts behind. It'll just be the Principat, what we call the Principat. It'll just be what is, you know, the autonomous region of Catalonia right now.
Right.
I mean, I can't imagine that. I mean, I can imagine that, like, the Balearic Islands would want to come with us. Or Valencia land. But no, I mean, it's too complicated, and
Yeah.
it's not. I don't think the movement is really about the entire linguistic area seceding, but at least to have a state where Catalan is like the central area of the heartland of Catalonia, you know, to at least to have that independent so that there's like a government fending for your rights that is not like racist against you or prejudiced against you or whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But in the Basque Country, I would imagine it would be like secede from Spain, and then the French part would be kind of lost. But you know, you'd always have. I mean, obviously, you'd always have like little programs, outreach, and there'd be. I mean,
and
what
maybe
are
they don't
borders
have
anyway?
the same problem. Yeah, exactly.
Well, France has been much more, so to speak, fascist than Spain.
Oh, really?
Well, when France had its revolution, they, to usher in equality for everyone, they also ushered in one single language, one single mentality, one single mind, one single everything. And they worked really, really well in destroying all the regional languages.
Yeah.
They were really brutal with that. The Spain wasn't even organized enough to do it.
Right.
They were never.
That was a long
good.
time ago.
Well, it's until
Because the
today,
French
really.
Revolution was like the late 1700s.
Yeah.
So you have
That's
much
not that long
longer
ago.
history. Right, but if you're thinking about like this
1700s.
Catalan, like the imposition of Spanish
1714
and
in Catalonia. Yeah, because it really, the whole bullshit. There's always been a little, you know, thing between. There's always been a little bit like battle, I think, between Castile and like the crown of Aragon, which was Catalunya, Aragon, and the Valencian land, sort of. And then they like married, like, you know, Ferdinand and Isabel, Ferran, Isabel la Católica, and Ferran of the crown of Aragon. So to understand all this, you have to understand that all of these things were commonwealths. I mean, the crown of Aragon was basically one governor, one king or whatever, for 3 different lands. And they had their own little rules and their own congresses, their proto-parliaments. And they had their own, they had a lot of, it was all very like together but independent, so it was like a commonwealth in the crown of Aragon. And then there was Castile. And then when they married, like Isabel did not become the queen of Aragon. She was still the queen of Castile, and Ferran did not become the king of Castile. He was still the king of Aragon. And these two realms, or actually the Commonwealth over here and this realm over here, they united, but they were still separate. That's why many, many travelers from all over have always written about Catalonia and how different it was from Spain, and the border and crossing and this land and that land, because they were different.
Yeah.
But then there was the War of Succession, where the Spanish crown, in 1714, blah, blah, blah. It was the 1700s. It was part of the was part of a world war. I mean, European, North America was also involved. The States was involved. The Mexican-American War was part of this, and blah blah. So it's very complicated, but part of that was the War of Succession with Spain, where the entire Europe was involved, taking sides. And Catalonia sided with the Austro-Hungarians, Charles of Austro-Hungary.
Sorry.
Gracias. And Castile sided with the Bourbons, who were the Bourbons?
I don't know.
The Bourbons were from Paris, from France. They were Louis XIV was the inventor of I'm not going to say it right. I want to say totalitarian. No. You know how we think in Middle Ages, like the kings had unlimited power and were just like despots and blah?
Sure.
That was invented by the French, by the Bourbon king, whoever, and followed by Louis XIV, the Sun King, who was then guillotined because he was such a savage.
Yeah.
But it's not totalitarian. It's called well,
I don't know.
I just can't remember the word.
Dictatorship?
I'll tell you later. Well,
Okay.
it's like a monarchy that's all powerful. But in other places in the world, like in Catalonia and even probably Spain, there were different
Levels of power, like there was.
yeah, well, the king had checks and balances, certain checks and balances. He was very powerful, of course, or she, whatever. But the nobility and the church and sometimes even the tradespeople had their say.
Yeah.
Because there were parliaments. In Catalonia, there was proto-parliament, just like in England, the proto-parliament. This is very old stuff, and we're very proud of it. Yeah. And so the king was not this all-powerful despot. Of course, there were despotic nobility and despotic kings were despotic to a certain extent, but there were some checks and balances. But then, the Bourbons, they ushered in this like total centralization, total control, total love. And I can't remember the word, but if I said it, it would make more sense. So I'll tell you later.
Yeah, it's okay.
Look it
Don't
up.
worry.
If Andre were here, I'd be like, Andre, what is the word? I'd be like, ding, ding, ding. Because he's my encyclopedia. And my brain doesn't work. I forget everything. But, so the Bourbons were this centralist, very much like control everything and like... but the Austro-Hungarians were much more liberal. They were like the regions. Okay, you want your own thing. You want to do your own thing over here. Okay, fine. Just be my subject. Pay me your taxes or whatever, and I'll leave you alone, kind of thing. But the Bourbons were like, your laws will be illegal. You have to speak Spanish. I mean, in this case, later it turned out. But I mean, the French, So the French sent their minion to be the Bourbon king here, the cousin of the king or whatever, the Bourbon, Bourbon of the Bourbon nobility. And the Austro-Hungarians, they were sending their, the Habsburg person over here, and the Charles of Habsburg. So blah blah blah. So they had this fight.
Yeah.
In the Catalan side of these people, so did the people from the Valencian land, and so did the Balearic Islands were part of Catalonia anyway. So they were all together. And Castile sided with the others, and then Europe came to the battlefield. The English were supposed to help the Catalans, and the French were obviously helping the Castilians, and other people probably, but I don't know. But then Charles, this guy of the Habsburg, he got named emperor of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and then he didn't need Catalonia anymore, and he kind of just left in the middle of this whole war.
Oh my gosh.
And then the English were like, oh yeah, okay, see you later, and so we were fucked.
Yeah.
And then they invaded, and they were Valencian land has the same story of tragedy and destruction, but they really came in. 1714 is the date because in Valencian land it was 1709. They were destroyed in 1709. They were taken over, whatever. They lost the war there. That was part of the war in 1709, and then it slowly moved up. And then there was a siege of Barcelona for at least a year or two. It was very heroic. And and this is like very alive in people's memories. 1714 is like yesterday here in Europe. It's like holy
It's true.
shit.
Yeah.
People really like know their history and they remember it and it's kept alive and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So 11th of September was the day of the capitulation when we lost in Barcelona, and then the rest,
No way.
they kept like fighting further north in Catalonia, but that was like the end anyway. It was like that spelled the end. And then when they came in, it was just really brutal repression, really brutal, really grotesque. And some of the statements, I mean, they're historic statements in writing. Some of the things you would read, you'd be like, holy shit, you know?
Yeah.
And it's kind of been like they marched into a territory and we have been their colony ever since, if you want to look at it that way. I mean, it's kind of radical and extreme to say that, but I mean,
Yeah.
of course, it's also like, it could have been, like today, this could be like a union of peoples and really beautiful and brotherhood. And, you know, the Catalans love Spain.
Yeah.
The Catalans love Spain and they travel around Spain and it's freaky and wonderful and we like it and everybody speaks Spanish. And how can you not like something that you know really well? You know the history of Spain and blah, blah. But there is really there's really seriously a problem in Spain. Before I came here, I didn't know this, you know. I didn't have a problem with Spain. I always said, I'm Catalan, I'm Spanish, I'm Catalan, you know. My parents never told me anything about any prejudice in Spain. But when I got here, I experienced in my own bones, even before I got here, I experienced this like hatred, vicious, vitriolic, like deep-seated hatred towards Catalans. When there wasn't hatred, there was always some prejudice, and like all sorts of like, there's just like serious prejudice against the Catalans in Spain.
Yeah.
And there are all these like cliches about the Catalan. They're always like really nasty. Sometimes it's like okay, sometimes it's cute. It's like they're like, oh, the Catalans can make bread from stones. De las piedras fan pa. Because they work really hard and it's really amazing and blah blah blah. But at the same time, there's a lot of people that have a problem with Catalonia, and it's fostered institutionally, and it's fostered through schools, and it's fostered from parents, and it's fostered. It's just one of those things, you know.
Yeah.
Like homophobia or something is fostered by society, and you don't even realize it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, there are a lot of wonderful people, but even wonderful people seem to have a little bit of a, you know, prejudice or some sort of ideas. Even the people living here who are coming from other parts of Spain sometimes. But it's like very, very inside your brain. You don't even realize it's there. You know, how can you get rid of a prejudice if you don't realize it's there?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So there's I don't even know what I was saying.
No,
I'm
no,
just
that's
going
so
on.
weird.
Oh my
Because your dad, my grandfather, was in the Civil War. Was he not?
He was a child during
Okay.
the Civil War. And it's a very interesting story.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like, he was a kid. He was like 10 or something. And he always talked about how it was a miserable time. And he had been really frightened and hungry and cold and everything. And he came from a pretty well-off family, you know? It's like what they always say, like the whole cliche of Catalans is that they're all the bourgeoisia catalana.
Oh, yeah.
The bourgeoisie. Everybody in Spain thinks that everybody here is like really rich. But they came from like, you know, upper middle class, but like professionals, you know?
Yeah.
Like my grandfather was an architect and the other grandfather was an engineer.
Yeah.
And the women didn't do anything because they weren't allowed, except for obviously raising 50,000 children.
Yeah.
And my great grandfather, he was a painter. You know, these kind of professions that are very privileged, really.
Yeah.
And my father was able to go to university and he studied chemistry and blah, blah. So I don't know. I guess that's privilege.
Yeah.
But not, you know, crazy. But anyway, so he lived the Civil War as a kid, and it was really miserable. But his family was kind of, well, I could tell you about that And then I could tell you about the fact that when he came. No, he didn't. He never left. In the 50s, when it was already the Franco era, the deep dark Franco era, he had to do the military service.
Yeah.
That's probably what you're thinking of.
Yeah, that is.
He spent. I don't know if it was 2 years that you had to spend in the military service, but it was obligatory, obviously. And all the guys had to. And my mother also, when she came back from Argentina, because she was born here and then she went to Argentina, and then she came back here when she was like 14 or something, they shipped her back. But when she came back here, it was Franco era already, and they forced her to do, labor in the hospitals. She had to be a nurse for free. Just like the men they were having all the women in the hospitals. She hated that man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, military service was really brutal.
Yeah.
Because, well, there's an amazing story on that. I don't know if you want to.
Sure. Yeah.
You know that story?
Lay it on me. Well, I don't know. I don't know what it is.
All right. Well, I mean, the army was obviously a horrible thing, and Franco and all, and blah. And he had a lot of great anecdotes that were kind of funny. Like they were the people who would train to go up in the mountains. Like, I don't know what you call that, but some military.
Mountaineer. I don't know.
Mountaineer brigade, whatever.
Yeah.
So they would carry these stupid little cannons up the fucking hill with some mules, but also themselves.
Yeah.
Dragging the cannons up Mont Seigne, the mountain over there. And then they would set it up somewhere, or they would have them set it up somewhere, and they would have them practice bombing. They just bomb the mountainside. But there were some towns down below, like Viladrau, which the captains of the military always called Viladro because they were from Spain. They couldn't pronounce it. Viladro. So Viladrau, sometimes the bombs would hit the city.
Oh my God.
Or just, and the city would be I don't know how they would get the message up. They were you fucking asshole, you're bombing us, God. They'd be oh my God. Oops, we calculated wrong. Oh my God. So those are funny stories. But then this was so pathetic. This is very ridiculous. But so one day the commander told my father and 4 or 5 of his colleagues to take a huge pile of hand grenades and take them apart to make fireworks for the local annual village celebration in some coastal village. So can you imagine how fucking stupid that was?
Yeah.
So this guy is criminal, in my opinion, asshole,
Yeah.
total idiot, total asshole. So there they were. I guess they kind of had no choice, and they weren't really bomb experts either. So there they were. Obviously, you can imagine what happened.
Yeah, I think I've heard.
Yeah, so somebody died, somebody else, their arm got ripped off. My father was in the hospital for a year.
Oh my God.
Lost his eye, had shrapnel for the rest of his life in his body. They couldn't really extract because it was too close to whatever, and he lost his hearing. Not completely, but a lot. So he was very bitter after that, let me tell you.
Yeah.
But in addition, when he first went to the hospital, they gave him a little paper that said, "You are invalid class 1," and you get some privileges at least.
Oh my gosh.
But then as he got better, they kept lowering the number your invalid until it was meaningless. Your invalid class 5, which gave you right to nothing at all, and it was so hypocritical. And then in addition, he had only 3 months left to his military stint, and they forced him to do it to instead of saying okay, go home, but he had to finish it. It was so gross.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah. But anyway, I mean, that's just stupid military stories.
Yeah. So the independence movement couldn't really exist during Franco's reign.
The independence movement has existed, let's see, 1714 is a moment when Catalonia loses all of its rights, all of its laws, all of its universities are closed. Catalan language is banned, it starts to be banned then. It's banned in public, it's banned in schools, it's banned in politics, it's, and it's progressive. Like 1 year, it's banned in politics. Another year, it's like it's all progressive. You can't teach it in schools. You can. So obviously, and Catalans have always been, ever since 1714, they were taxed onerously on purpose to punish, and to make sure that like there would be no, and and the castle up here on Montjuic and the citadel, Ciutadella Park, was a citadel that was built, the people whose houses were destroyed were forced to take stones from their houses instead of rebuilding their houses and start building the citadel. So they practically built the citadel for the military, for the Bourbon Spanish military, who would control the city from both sides, and they could bomb it whenever they wanted to if there were any uprisings. So it was a very hated thing, and so is the Montjuic Castle was always very hated because it was used as a prison, and that's where Companys was shot, and really horrible. So I don't know, what am I saying? I'm very dispersed here. Oh, right, 1714, right? Independence movement. Oh yeah. So there's always been this underlying idea of returning to the state of what we feel was independence.
Yeah.
Returning to the state of having our own laws, our own, and the, full status for deciding our own future, which includes anyone who moves here and wants to be Catalan. It's not like a blood thing. It's not like a fucking, fascist, like, only people with last names that are Catalan. No. Anybody who wants to be part of the project, welcome. But yeah, I mean, there's always been a movement. In fact, like, there was the Spanish Republic before the first dictator, Primo de Rivera. There was a dictator just before Franco. He only lasted like 3 years, but he was also a fascist dictator. And and he came into power through military support, but then the military didn't support him anymore, and he had to leave. And that was like shortly before Franco. So it was the first republic before him, and then there was this coup by Primo de Rivera, and then there was the second republic after him, and then there was the coup by Franco, which turned into civil war. So what was he saying? Oh yeah, so at the second republic, I think, the Catalans already declared independence, but then Madrid came in and it was like it lasted 2 days or something. I don't know if it was Companys or who, but somebody from the Generalitat or the Ayuntament balcony was like, I declare independence.
Oh my
I declare
God.
the Republic of Catalonia, but kind of within Spain. I don't really know, because it was like a association of republic. Who knows? The point is that was short-lived.
Yeah.
So there's always been like an independence movement, let me
Right.
tell you. Movement or idea.
Yeah.
And it's always been like, oops.
But it's
always been short-lived. And then during the Franco era, during the Civil War, I don't know.
Yeah.
God, I talk a lot.
No, it's
I
so
don't
good.
know what I'm saying. What am I
So great. But it was like stifled by Franco. It was just like,
it was very repressive under the Franco regime.
Yeah.
It was very repressed, and people were like very heroic. They would actually publish books in Catalan, but it was a big deal.
Yeah.
And it was like so. And as time went on, it got a little looser, but still, it was like it was really horrible that he died of old age in bed. It was really disgusting. Everybody was disgusted.
yeah. That is really
Actually, I mean, it was like, Anyway, but yeah, when he died, people didn't even rejoice because they just thought, oh, now he's gonna the next guy's gonna take over.
What's next?
And then the Basque. This was the first act by the Basque ETA, the terrorist organization. It was like their first act was to blow up Franco's hand-picked successor.
Oh my God.
They blew him up. So in reality, I mean, this is disgusting and everything, but they actually did a favor to Spain because it kind of changed things. And then, I mean, I don't know. I don't really know the history very well, but that did happen. And people were like, oh, whoops. Haha.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was very repressive, and you could go to jail for speaking Catalan in the streets, and I know people who did, and people know people who did, and blah, and and nothing has really changed because the Spanish transition was built on, forgive and forget, like bury the past, which is very wrong.
Yeah.
Because a lot of ministers who were ministers under Franco are still ministers today. I mean, they're very old, right? But like, what's his name? This guy from Galicia. I think he just died, but he was really. The PP is like full of people who were. Anyway, there was never like a. What do you call it? Like a cleansing of the. I mean, it sounds horrible, but there was never. Like Argentina, they tried all the people who had been doing the disappearances. They tried and they brought people to justice, and that helps to clear the air,
Yeah.
But here it's kind of like
Yeah.
they don't even know where the people are buried, like all the mass graves. And there were mass graves from both sides because there were the anarchists and the communists and the whatever, the other side was also killing people randomly. They were killing all these nuns just because they were nuns. They were killing all the priests just because they were priests. They were killing monks, and they were killing like anybody who was like a factory owner or a factory head of a, what do you call it, capataz. And there was a general reign of terror
Yeah.
here and there on both sides.
Right.
But what can I say to you? What else do you want to know?
So, when did you move here?
Like 22 years ago, I think. What was that like?
So, like 1997, 8.
Yeah, 1998 or 99 maybe.
Okay.
When did the euro come into being? Because I had already been here for a while. I'd already been here for like 3 or 4 years.
When the euro was invented? Let's see.
When did it arrive in Spain? I'm gonna look up peseta and see when it ended. Oh, 2002. No, wait.
1999.
Oh, yeah. 1999 to 2002, it was phased out.
Yeah.
So I was here before that.
Okay.
So yeah, like 98, 90, I don't know,
Okay.
97, something like that.
Right. So, how long have they been using Catalan in schools?
Since just 1980, I think.
Okay.
So not that long, There are a lot of people who don't know how to write Catalan. Don't feel like they have a grasp of it. I mean, they're Catalans, but they never studied foreign language.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people who just study it as adults.
Right.
Who just learn from reading. Language,
Right. Exactly.
Depends on who you are. But.
So that brings me to my next question.
Yeah.
So, what personally is your feeling and opinion about Catalan versus Castellano, and what's the difference? For generally, personally, for other people, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Okay. Well, first of all, the whole thing with schooling being in Catalan, and obviously you always learn Spanish in school as well, but the schooling being in Catalan, 100% Catalan, and then you take a class to learn Spanish, that has been a really wonderful thing, and it has worked out really well, and it's had really good results. They're always writing about how positive that experience has been, and it has never been a disadvantage. It's always been an advantage to be because growing up in Catalonia today and for the last 50 years or more, you automatically learn Spanish no matter what.
Okay.
You just kids who have grown up in the countryside in some long lost village, and everybody around them is speaking Catalan and blah blah blah, and they're speaking Catalan in school, and they're little kids. They already they come home and they come out with Spanish, and the parents are like, how did you do that? And it's just in the air because Spanish is everywhere. And this whole mythology that they foster and they pump out in this propaganda bullshit from the rest of Spain, that they have this propaganda thing where they say that Spanish is persecuted in Catalonia. They're like, oh my god, Spanish is persecuted. But in reality, Spanish and Catalan live side by side, and it's fine.
Right.
But Catalan needs protection because really, languages don't die naturally. Languages are killed.
Yeah.
And Spain would really like to eliminate Catalan.
Yeah.
From an official standpoint, it's just a pain in the ass, and it like leads to a different identity, and they don't like that, and they haven't figured out how to embrace it because they're not. It's just been very stupid, if you ask me. If Spain had just embraced the Catalan identity as one more of the identities within Catalonia, everybody would be so happy here.
Yeah.
And they didn't and everything was fair. If the Catalans were treated fairly and squarely,
Right.
and accepted and blah blah blah, then everything would be fine.
Right.
So, Spanish is a language spoken in like half the world through conquest, of course.
Yeah.
Like Latin America, it's Spanish. People think, oh, Spanish, but it's not the only language spoken in Latin America.
Yeah.
Peru, Bolivia, they still speak Aymara.
Yeah, I went to Cusco and I totally forget what the language is called, but we picked it up.
You did?
Yeah.
You've learned a little bit?
Yeah, I will never. Chompa is a sweater.
Oh, yeah.
Which is like
Chompa.
my favorite. I'll never forget that. And there's others too, but I mean, I forget most of it. But yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah. And a lot of the native languages are struggling there, but some of them have official status. Like Paraguay has a pretty good record with their native language. Anyway, so Spanish is spoken throughout like half the world, and it's not a language that is even remotely threatened by a language like Catalan.
Yeah.
Catalan is split among 3 different countries actually, because there's this tiny little town in Sardinia, which is part of Italy, where Catalan is also spoken. So you could say 3 countries, but really, well, if you include Andorra as a country, then 3 countries plus that little tiny town in Italy. Catalan is split in 3 countries and 4 autonomous regions within Spain as a language, and it's really hard because it's always being divided, and there's an active machinery to stop Catalan from living fully and people from living fully in Catalan. There's a huge resistance from Spain. And that means, like, if you go to court, you can never speak in Catalan because the judge is not from Catalonia, and the judge is going to speak to you in Spanish. And if you insist on Catalan, you always feel like, oh my God, what if they don't like me? Because I refuse to speak their language, and then like we just change languages.
The judges aren't appointed locally.
The judges are appointed from all over Spain. It's the civil service system. So judges come from all over, and like one of the requirements to get into Catalonia is that you speak Catalan. But a lot of them are just like, right. And then civil servants as well. Like if you go to the registry, you might get somebody from here, but you might get somebody from like Valladolid, all the way across in the deep, dark Castile. This place that's far away. It's like the heartland of Castile, where they speak the best Spanish and blah, blah. Anyway, like what happened to Andre and I when we went to the registry, the civil registry here. We wanted to get married, so you have to go and like get on a list, and you have to see if they let you get married, and they put you on the list, because Andre was a foreigner, right? Foreigner. So we had to go and like do this thing. And in fact, that's why we got married, but we were a couple, but we were like, we gotta get married so you can get your papers. Okay. Yeah. So we go there, and like, oh God. And 2 of our 2 witnesses who came with us, they were also foreigners.
Oh my God.
It was really funny. There was this Latino guy, this like German tech woman, or Slovak, whatever. And anyway, so we go there, and like, we get this woman, this is very typical, we get this woman who is so gross. She's like this, what can I say? I mean, it's going to sound like I'm prejudiced. I'm not prejudiced. I'm not prejudiced, I swear to God. This woman treated us like shit. She refused to speak Catalan. She spoke to us in Spanish, and she was like really, really nasty to us. She looked me up and down like I was a piece of trash, and she said, "You are from Argentina?" And like she hated Argentines or something, and because I was born in Argentina,
Yeah.
and then she immediately sent us to. She made us wait a year, and she sent us to be judged, kind of thing. I mean, we had to go through this whole process where we got interrogated by another judge to see if we were actually a couple. So we had to go in separately, and they would ask us questions about couples, like what underwear does he wear, or something stupid like that, which is so stupid. So she was just, I mean, they're supposed to speak Catalan to you, but they're very hostile.
Yeah.
Incredibly hostile, often, if they're not from Catalonia. And sometimes it's not a problem. And sometimes what happens here is that a lot of people are coming from outside, and a lot of people have Spanish as their native language, and you just speak in Catalan to them, and they understand you, and they speak in Spanish to you, and you're fine. Everybody's fine.
Yeah.
That's what happens in normal life here. Because a lot of people, since they don't have to speak Catalan, it's not like if you go to France, you have to speak French.
Yeah.
They can speak Spanish, and everybody will understand them. So they never have that like desperate need to speak Catalan. So they don't necessarily go that step further, where you force yourself to speak that language because it's difficult for them or whatever. So that's fine. You know, people a lot of times they just don't. They just can't, or they don't feel like it, or whatever. But it's not a problem. But then there's all the people with the hostility.
Yeah.
Who are like rampantly hostile. And this was one of those hostile people. So anyway, trying to live in Catalonia is like impossible. Like, there are all these things that you're up against, you know? Like the civil servants, it depends on whose hands you fall into, whether you can speak Catalan or not. And of course you switch languages. Like when we got to this woman, we weren't like, I should have gotten up and said, gone back to the line and said, I want to speak to somebody in Catalan, and maybe it would have been like not so hostile.
Yeah.
You know, and she would have sent us to like wait a year to get married, and like Andre wouldn't have had to wait a year to get his papers.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. But so there are all these things, and they never tell you about that. Anyway, if you walk into a bookstore, there's this tiny, there are tons of books being published every year in Catalan. It's like a miracle. And there are all these writers in Catalan. There's a huge amount of poets. It's like amazing, because people are very like, it's like, you know, because Catalan is kind of sort of threatened, but spoken very widely and has a lot of prestige still. So the language is a big deal here.
Yeah.
And everybody's always talking about the language, and then people end up writing. There's a lot of writers. And in this day and age where anybody can write as well, I mean, you have internet, and you have all these resources at your beck and call and blah, and there are all these publishing houses. So there's a lot of books being published in Catalan. But if you walk into a bookstore, there's a huge section in Spanish. There's a much smaller section in Catalan, and then there's, if you're lucky, some bookstores only have Spanish, depends. And then, no, most bookstores have Catalan here.
Yeah.
But, and then there's like a section in English, which is a little smaller, but not that much smaller than Catalan nowadays.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And obviously if you go anywhere else in Spain, apart from like the Catalan speaking areas, you're gonna get like maybe one book in Catalan somewhere, maybe.
Yeah.
But they might want to hide it so they don't get burned, because somebody might hate Catalans and like throw a bomb. I have Catalan books. Cute. I don't know. So, and then you're walking down here and you go to a kiosk and you want to buy a newspaper, and like you have basically 3 newspapers in Catalan and you have like 20,000 in Spanish.
Yeah.
And so it's all like that. And then TV channels, they switch to digital terrestrial, whatever that's called.
Oh, I don't know.
They switch from like, I don't know what system, and satellite TV to like digital terrestrial is like the latest thing, and it's a couple of years ago. And like Spain also used that to destroy the links, because here you could get the Valencian channel, where there was like a tiny bit of Valencian spoken, which is the name of Catalan down in Valencia. But it was kind of funny. And then they could get the Catalan TV3, which is the big Catalan TV station, and we could also get the Balearic Island station, which was hilarious. That was really in Catalan and everything. But then with the new licenses, they had this whole thing where everything was like, licenses were up for grabs and the whole thing, and the Spanish government was deciding who got a license and who didn't. And in the middle of all this, there are these towers, these radio towers or whatever, television towers, that this cultural organization, this NGO, had put up all the way down in the tip of the Valencian land and in the middle of the Valencian land so that they could get TV3 and the radio in Catalan and the TV in Catalan, because it's a Catalan-speaking area. And there's like in Valencia, the only TV channel was only like a tiny bit in Catalan and the rest was all Spanish, even though it's supposed to be in Valencian. It was just like, haha. So it was nice. It's not like, you know, we wanted to take over the world or something, but you know, people wanted to hear the language, and so TV3 would have a lot of power in that sense, which is kind of sad, but it would be nice for them to be able to hear their own language. It's a right? I mean, this is a minority, which is not even a minority. There's so many people who speak Catalan, and yet we have to be a minority for some reason. So the PP just started putting fines on these, giving this association, this NGO, fines in Valencia, in the Valencian land. Huge fines for putting up these things. I mean, they've been functioning for many years, many years, and they suddenly decided this was illegal, and they decided that getting the Catalan TV was illegal. There was no permit, there was no nothing, there was no this, that. Even there were agreements, you know, in Catalonia and Valencia. They were like, okay, yes, let's get the TV. But they decided that all this shit was illegal, and they started tearing down the towers and shit, and all this like financial punishments by, you know, fining them huge quantities. And you know, all the activists were always sending WhatsApps and emails like asking for money, because everybody was pitching in for these fines. So everybody paid. I paid fines. Everybody paid these fines. It's like this is constantly happening. So not only do we pay much more than our share in taxes to Spain and never get anything back, but also we're also paying the fines, which is another form of taxation. It's huge fines for whatever. We're paying fines to get out of jail when they weren't even tried yet. These people who when you get out on bail, we were helping pay bail, huge amounts of bail for all these people who've been in prison, and then they would, after we pay the bail, they'd come out, and then they would like arrest them again.
Oh my god.
So some of the people who are in jail now had already paid bail to get out. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, what am I saying? What was the question?
It was just about like Catalan versus Spanish.
Back to this. Spanish is a beautiful language, and I love Spanish, and there are all different sorts of Spanish spoken all over Spain, and it's really nice and beautiful. But there's this whole like suprematist mentality.
Yeah.
It's really weird. Like they cannot, to me, they cannot accept people who are monolingual Spanish. Not everyone, obviously, but many people are like biased, and it's fostered. It's like this whole prejudice thing that you get without realizing it through your education, through society, through the government, through law. Is all like inculcated into people's brains that like it's rude to speak Catalan. It's nasty to speak Catalan because Spanish is the language of everyone, and Catalan is just so rude. How could you speak Catalan in public? And if you have like in Catalonia, the only place in Catalonia and the other little places where Catalan is spoken natively, the only places where you could really speak Catalan, they're like, how dare you, like when you have like a film festival, how dare you put anything in Catalan? It should all be in Spanish because it's international, right? Yeah. So it's really ridiculous. I mean, you could use the same thing. You could say, why put it in Spanish? Why not English? English is more international. Or Chinese. Yeah. Why? Why not put everything in Chinese? I mean, it's much more international. Yeah. Many more people speak Chinese, right? Yeah. So it's just this crazy. Speaking Catalan is punished. And a lot of people in Catalonia, they feel afraid to speak Catalan on a daily basis without realizing it. It's not afraid, but like to avoid conflict, a lot of people just automatically like start speaking Spanish in a place where they don't know you or where they think you might be foreign. They're like, oh my god, foreigner, immediately speak Spanish, otherwise it's not nice. Which is stupid, because what if their language is not Spanish? Yeah. Or what if they came here, they learned Catalan, and then you won't speak to them in Catalan because they look different?
Yeah.
So it's a kind of a discrimination that you're doing to foreigners, but they think they're being nice because they're like a lot of people here who are not aware. Like after a while, you might say to yourself, "What the hell's going on here?"
Yeah.
Which is what happened to me. I was like, "Why am I always speaking Catalan here, Spanish here when?" I came to Catalonia. I was all excited about being able to speak Catalan finally, but everyone is speaking Spanish to me, right and left, and what's going on? So it's something that everybody's always thinking about the language here.
Yeah.
Language is a huge topic. Language is like, there are linguists everywhere. There are like books about language. People are buying books about the language, about, whatever, anything about the language and about like phrases and stuff. And that's also because Spanish is so all pervasive. And it's everywhere, and also like TV in Catalan, it's full of Spanish-isms, everywhere. It's like every phrase that somebody says, and they're on, this TV. They have this huge responsibility to speak Catalan well, and they're always throwing in Spanish-isms because Spanish-isms are huge in Barcelona. They're like, that's how people speak, so we have to reflect it. So they're fostering actually the whole. Eventually, if this goes on like this, Catalan will become a dialect of Spanish because it'll just be like little words, a few words in Catalan in between phrases in Spanish.
Yeah.
But what happens is that you live here and Spanish is so prevalent and all pervasive that you end up putting Spanish words in everywhere. You forget the Catalan words. And I myself have taken a couple of courses here, even though I speak Catalan. I've spoken Catalan all my life. I've taken a couple of courses here at the Escuela Oficial de Idiomas.
Okay.
The official school of languages. They have Catalan language courses as well as the free language courses. This is like a private thing, but it's government run, but you have to pay, but it's pretty cheap. So it's pretty cool. So I've taken a couple of courses there that are like intensive. Level 3, there's only like 4 levels, so level 3, I'm taking level 3. It's the perfect level to work out a lot of the Spanishisms that you shouldn't have. Like, I like speaking Spanish, but when I'm speaking Catalan, I like to speak Catalan instead of like a mishmash, right? So I've taken a course there, and when you get out of there, you're like, you're speaking Catalan and you're remembering all these amazing words. But over time, after like 3 years, you're back to zero. I have to go back there. I haven't been back in a while, but my Catalan has gotten so bad. And not only that, but I have to read all the time because otherwise, like, Catalan, Spanish is like, So it's kind of a struggle, and it's a good thing that Catalan schools are taught in Catalan because otherwise,
Yeah, that's really interesting because
Spanish.
I know so many languages have disappeared, but
Yeah,
Catalan
and
is
they're
really
all
strong.
a treasure.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. But in France, for instance, they really did these politics to eliminate local languages because they called them patois.
Yeah.
They called them, patois. What would you call that? Well, like patois means
Pidgin.
like pidgin,
That's
like
what it is.
poorly spoken French, like a really pathetic form of like embarrassing, gross, disgusting. They made kids think that they were speaking some sub-language that was really gross and embarrassing and pathetic, and so they would repudiate it themselves. And they also sent teachers all over the country. They would never put a Catalan teacher in Catalonia or a person from Catalonia as a teacher in Catalonia. They would send them to like butt fuck somewhere else. And the same with all the other languages like the Basque and the Breton. Breton is the one that has fared the best in France.
I was there. I was in La Ciotat. Yeah.
In La Ciotat?
Yeah.
Where is that?
It's like an hour north or something of Marseille. So it's in Provence.
Oh, Provence. You're talking about Occitan. But Occitan has fared really poorly. But Breton in Bretagne, it's a Celtic language.
Oh my gosh.
And curiously, it's one of the most alive after all this like assassination attempts from the government of France. They're having a real revival, and somehow it survived. Maybe because it's so different. I don't know.
Yeah.
And they can't say, oh, that's a patois because it's just like Chinese.
Yeah.
That's not a patois. It's something else.
Yeah.
So maybe, but That's the strongest regional language in France right now, apart from Corsican maybe, but Corsican is so few people, I guess. But the Occitan has been really
Yeah.
hard hit. I mean, they started being hard hit after the what do you call that? My words, I can't remember my words. It's okay. My brain doesn't work.
The revolution?
The crusade.
Oh, the
The crusade. When they had a crusade in France, they went to the south, the Albigeois, when they said there was heretics. There were heretics down there. The Catas, the Cata. When they crushed the Catars, those were the Occitans. All the Catars were Occitan. Not all the Occitans were Catar, but all the Catars were Occitan and Catalan. Actually, a couple of Catalan. They were like on the border. There was like mingling.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning of the end, because the whole era of Provençal was the era of the bards and the poetry. The greatest medieval poetry was done in Occitan.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the troubadours. The troubadours were Occitan people.
Okay.
Provençal, Occitan.
Yeah.
And their age of glory was then, because after that, like, the Languedoc took over. The Languedoc took over. The Languedoc was kind of quickly pushed aside, slowly pushed aside.
But Catalan has stayed really strong. Like, nobody thinks, oh, Catalan is going to disappear right now. You're like, it could happen, it's being pushed out, whatever, but it's still spoken by so many people. And
it's hard to judge, you know, because everything happens so fast today with all the media. But there's a lot of people working in favor of Catalan as, like, practically as activists, you know, like writing in the Wikipedia in Catalan is like being an activist.
Yeah.
There's a whole Wikipedia Amical society, which I joined, in fact, which is like this little organization that fosters they deal with the Wikipedia in Catalan, and they managed to the Catalan chapter of the Wikipedia is like the third chapter that there ever existed in the Wikipedia.
Really?
Like the third language.
Wow.
When it started being, first it was in English, and then it was in another, I don't know which, and then it was in Catalan, I guess.
Wow.
And Catalan has huge number of articles compared to number of speakers. So people are really like, all right, let's do Wikipedia in Catalan. Some articles are badly done, but some are really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wikipedia. But it's great. It's like all these people are working. So it's hard to say, you know, because if the PP party comes into power and has its way and like tries to control here somehow through some sort of bullshit, and PSOE too is very fascist, really. The PSOE, the socialists of Spain are also very anti-Catalan. Like, everybody thinks that Catalan should be removed from the school for some reason.
Yeah.
But it's only a positive thing to learn, you know, Catalan and 1,000 other languages.
Yeah, exactly. Why not?
It's really good. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's threatened, and I think it will continue to live. But I think it all boils down to school. You know, if kids in school think Catalan is stupid, and there's a lot of kids are speaking Spanish in their break in the schoolyard, they're all speaking Spanish to one another, it must be peer pressure. Like, it's not cool to speak Catalan anymore.
Yeah.
So that's really that's a bad sign. So, but I mean, you know, that could be just after a while they get over that little problem, and then they come back to Catalan. It could be.
Yeah.
Like, you never know. There's always cause for alarm, and then there's always cause for, like, saying, no, it can't be disappearing. You know, but it's kind of scary.
Yeah.
Kind of scary to me. I think it all boils down to whether school is taught in Catalan. And at universities, you know, it's always like, on paper it sounds like Catalan is very present, and Catalan is doing really well, but, you know, a lot of universities, they're teaching a lot of classes in English now, and then the professors, they can really decide what language to teach in. They can teach in Spanish. A lot of people teach in Spanish, and then to be taught in Catalan, you really have to look sometimes for a course. And it's like, you're not gonna like choose what you study according to what language it's taught in, probably.
Right.
So, yeah. It's a mixed bag, you know. Catalan is strong, but it's strong because people are activists, and you have to be an activist constantly.
Yeah.
It's not just like you can relax and like it's not a normal language. That's why they say normalización del catalán. There's this whole normalization process, which is like never going to be over, I think, unless we have a country or Spain were actually not centralized.
Yeah.
If people could just relax, but you can never relax here. It's like it's always like a fight. It's always like you're always struggling to keep Catalan alive. Like when I go buy a book, I'm not just gonna buy the first book I see. Let's say I want to buy a translation from Hungarian or something. First, I look for it in Catalan because I want to foster the publishing industry in Catalan.
Yeah.
Because you know you're going to find it in Spanish if it's a famous book or whatever. But you may or may not find it in Catalan. And you may, because there are this amazing the amount of books being published in Catalan. But you actually have to look for it. Because if you're just going to walk in blindly, like, you always have to be like thinking about this.
Yeah.
You have to be thinking.
Yeah. So I have one last question.
See, I can't speak too much.
No, it's so good. Don't say that. We can do another one. This is like so good. Yes.
This is so much fun. I can't believe you're so receptive. This is a fun interview because I can explain things to someone in English who wants to listen, and I think it's really good because you could serve as a bridge someday, and maybe it's interesting to people.
I think so.
And it's just my opinion, and I'm not explaining things very well, and it sounds all weird and shit. But
that's what I wanted. But do you know what new book just came out, like in academics, about? Oh my God, what's it called? Of course I forget, but I can send it to you. About the Catalan language, like modern, like just published in 2019.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to find
but
it.
But in what language was it published?
Well, I have it in English. I think it was an American woman who wrote it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'll find it and I'll send it to you. So, if Catalonia became independent tomorrow, what would be like your blueprint?
My blueprint for Catalonia?
Yeah.
If independent tomorrow? Yes!
Go crazy. Go wild.
Get rid of all the politicians and institute anarchy, which is true democracy. Democracy of the people, by the people. No, nothing that radical. Politics seems very rotten to its core a lot of times, and our democracies aren't very democratic because you elect someone and then they have a lot of power once they're elected. Like they think that they can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And you have no say in the matter anymore. For like 4 years, all you can do is like elect someone.
Right.
So I would like, basically the same system, but with more say of the people, I guess. More referendums about whatever. Referendums about anything, and where people like have their say. And of course, it's all very complicated. Sometimes you'd be asked a question of something, asked to decide about something where you're not really capable of deciding, like you don't know the facts and stuff. So it's all very complicated.
Right.
But yeah, I guess I would just want a democracy, and I would want Catalan to be the official language, and Spanish could be the co-official language, because there's no need to antagonize anyone who loves Spanish. Spanish is wonderful, and we're surrounded with Spanish. I think Occitan should be another co-official language, and French could also be.
Yeah.
Because there's Catalonia North, and that would be a nice wink in that direction. But, Occitan is an official language in Catalonia right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Languedoc, the Provençal. It's Aranès, Val d'Aran. You know the Val d'Aran, the Valley of Aran? It's this tiny valley up in the north-west corner of Catalonia, bordering on France, which is the Occitan part of France. And they speak Occitan, but a variant of Occitan called Aranès, because it's the Valley of Aran, which actually means Valley of the Valley. Yeah, whatever. Aran, I think it's a Basque word meaning valley, originally. Anyway, So the point is that that's a co-official language in Catalonia, but since they only speak it in that tiny, tiny corner, it comes up like once a week in the El Punavui newspaper. They have a little section in Aranés, and then sometimes when you go somewhere, they have like something in Aranés and stuff. But it would be really cool to get that official. That would be really wonderful.
Yeah.
Thing, it'd be really.
And you would keep the format of like the Catalan parliament or however it exists.
Yeah, I think there would be a lot of. I think you'd have to revamp the whole thing so that it wouldn't be like what Spain is like today.
Right.
At all. You'd have to
Because
modernize
you're dissatisfied
everything. I'm very dissatisfied
with the Catalan government internally.
Yeah. I don't know. It's hard to say. The Catalan government, it's like just a region of Spain right now.
Right.
So it's hard to like judge what the Catalan government is like. I just think that politics in Spain is incredibly corrupt. It's unbelievably corrupt, and it's just like massive.
Yeah.
And I don't want that for an independent Catalonia. I think the whole constitution of Spain is terribly, terribly backwards and has to be updated for Spain. And obviously, Catalonia would be going with a new constitution that would make it a modern constitution. It would have to be modern in so many ways. So, I think there should be like a very socially conscious Catalonia with a lot of social policies that the Parliament of Catalonia has tried to pass a lot of social laws that have then gone to the Spanish Parliament and been debunked. They have been shot down by vetoed. Yeah, they have vetoed laws. They've said they're unconstitutional that were just too social-minded. Like the Catalan Parliament voted that like an anti-poverty law or something. You could get no poverty, whatever. There's some. I don't know,
Do you know when? If like you have an example.
Oh God, I'm so bad at this. You have to ask
okay.
him. When you interview Andre, you can ask him specific things because he'll probably like.
Okay.
Because he's like a computer, but like over the past, since the Estatut was shut down, a lot of these laws have been like called into question and vetoed. Anything could be vetoed, which is totally ridiculous.
Yeah.
The Catalan Parliament is passing laws, and then the Spanish Parliament is saying they're unconstitutional, or not the Parliament, but the Constitutional Court, which is handpicked by the PP government, handpicked by the governments. These stupid judges. It's really corrupt.
It's like in the States. It's so awful.
It's just really, really bad. And there's the Constitutional Court, and there's the I don't know what court, the Supreme Court. There are several different courts, and they're all like the good judges are ditched, and I don't know. There's like a lot of really bad stuff going on. You know the PP scandal, the huge scandals going on with the PP of the past. Like this whole Catalan process has served the PP to cover up. The newspapers don't even talk about these scandals, but they're huge.
Like what? Like
since my brain doesn't work, I can't remember the names of all these scandals. But there's like there are newspapers from here or online newspapers that have like lists of the huge amount of scandals, and there's like a major scandal covering it all, kind of, and like millions of sub scandals. This one of the major scandals of the PP, you wouldn't believe. Like I think in the last 5 or 6 years, the people in the PP or who were part of the scandal but on lower levels, who were set to go to court to testify, they've all died. There've been like 20 deaths, and it's always like, oh, she was old and she died. Oh, he was in Argentina and he got sick. Oh, he died. Oh, he had a heart attack.
What were they testifying for?
They were testifying in court cases about the PP being corrupt. Huge corruption cases about the PP. Every single, and a lot of them were members of the PP, so they were like in the know. There were like huge amounts of deaths, one after another, and like nobody says anything. I mean, of course, some people are saying something, but like the focus is like all this bullshit about, oh, the Catalans are so bad. Look at them. They want to separate their bad people and blah, blah. They want to leave Spain. How dare they? And blah, 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 blah. But nobody's like, you know, there's these huge corruption cases. And there are some corruption cases here too, but then they're like, whoa.
Yeah.
They're like always like, oh, look at the Catalans, they're so big. And yeah, there's some huge corruption cases in the Balearic Islands, and it's a PP. And in Valencian land, and it's a PP, by the way. But also, PSOE is not. PSOE, like the two huge parties in Spain are really corrupt. And the PP puts a nice face on it, like they're really left-wing democratic, but they're not. And then the PP is very honest about it. They're really disgusting right-wing, really far right-wing. I mean,
oh my god.
like, and they make no bones about it. They're like, but there are huge corruption cases. And there was this guy called Millet, I think Millet. He was the head of he was directing the Orfeo Catalan Choral Society, or the Catalan Palau de la Música. He was involved with the Palau de la Música, with the huge, you know, the big deal here where they put on concerts. And I guess he was like diverting funds for many years, and he's Catalan, and he was like totally corrupt, and people were shocked about that, and blah blah blah. But I mean, what about the rest of the Spanish government? You know?
Yeah.
Everything is really corrupt, and the judicial system is extremely corrupt. In fact, like the director of, you know, the Barça, the Catalan football club par excellence. It's like this patriotic thing. It's like more than a soccer club.
Yeah.
Like everybody's like national pride. Sandro Rosell, I think, was one of the directors of the club, or one of the shareholders. I don't know what the fuck he was, but I think directors of the club.
How do you spell his last name?
Oh, double S and then double L, Rosell. Yes. Yeah. Sandro Rosell was the president of this club for many years, and until recently, and the club was doing well. And then the scandal hit the fan, and they arrested him. They put him in jail for like 5 years, preventatively. I don't even know. Maybe it wasn't 5 years, maybe it was 3 years, but preventatively, like the Catalan political prisoners. Why did they do that? They said that he was, what do you call it? Siphoning funds, what do you call that? Embezzling? They said that he was embezzling. But they, like, after like 3 or 4 or 5, I don't know how many years of preventive prison, they finally went to court, and then he was exonerated. Okay. So he spent, like, I don't know how many years in jail. And it's really disgusting. It's just another one of those things where, like, he is, you know, one of the leaders of a Catalan symbol, and he ends up in preventative prison just for the fuck of it. I mean, they didn't put, like, this imbeciles, the royal family in jail, even though they're, like, totally corrupt.
Yeah.
Huge corruption scandals with the royal family, and they're all, like, and the husband of the princess, whatever the fuck his name was, he's off in Switzerland or something, and then like somebody's in I don't know, it's really grotesque. The royal family, the whole monarchy is really disgusting.
Yeah.
And most Catalans really detest the monarchy. I wouldn't say everyone, obviously, because there's all sorts of colors here. There are the right wing here, and there's monarchists here, but you know, it's practically a Catalan thing to not want a monarchy.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Everyone that I know is like, Spanish monarchy.
Yeah.
Because it's just, there's no reason for it to exist, and it's also very corrupt, and it's also... Franco instated this, just the last king who just instated his son. Franco instated him, and he was even illegitimate. Because what happened was that the legitimate here to the Spanish, there was the Republic, and then Franco, you know, created the Civil War. And then he like went and got this brother of the legitimate, this cousin of the legitimate. He got the legitimate king. He wanted to reinstate, but he like took a look at him. He saw that he was old enough to have his own ideas. The guy did not like Franco. He did not like what he stood for. So he was like, he told the guy, well, I'll give you a choice. I can pay you off and you're set for life and you just go fuck off and live somewhere else and don't ever come back here. And or maybe he said to him, or I kill you. I have no idea about the or part, but he definitely took the payoff and he fucked off, and he's been living wealthily in Italy ever since, or he was living. And the illegitimate guy got put into power as a king, and he was just a kid. That's why Franco wanted him, because he was just a kid, this cousin, and he could mold him. So he was molded by Franco as a fascist.
Yeah.
And his son is who we have in power now for the last 2 years, but before that it was this idiot. And he's like scandalous. Both of them, but especially the father, but also the son. He's only had 2 years, but still.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. What am I even saying? Blah, blah, blah. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, I think that in an independent Catalonia, Spanish should be a presence, but Catalan should be assisted. Catalan should be the official language, so it never dies. And also, like in the surrounding regions where Catalan is native, it might be able to live just because it's official in Catalonia and it's just next door. So that'll help, like, keep it from dying in the Valencian land and the Balearic Islands and in Catalonia North, right?
Yeah.
And then Andorra and blah. What else can I say to you? I'm sure like half the questions you asked me, I only half answered them.
No, you didn't. If you didn't, I would have asked again. Don't worry.
I'm sure I left a lot out. I left a lot out.
Yeah, well, we can do it again, but that's